Hello, it's Ryan from Building Body, Mind, Soul, back for another edition here. I got a question from one of our online students about what I personally do to cope with depression when I'm feeling depressed. I think everybody, some people clinically, long-term, other people situationally, but everybody has felt depressed at some point. As always, it's not medical advice in any way. This is just informational. You should always talk to a licensed healthcare provider if you're feeling depressed, and especially if you're ever feeling suicidal. But I think the short answer is I've been depressed, you've probably been depressed, and depression can, rear its ugly head at different times in life for different reasons. And people talk about the chemical imbalance, and chemical can be part of it. People talk about the perception imbalance, and perception or lack thereof can be a part of it. It can also be situational. It can also be multifactorial. As always, the things that you can control are worth looking at. And I often tell students, depression can be a very fast elevator ride down, and it's often a slow elevator ride back up. And it happens, and it really is a slow elevator ride happening incrementally, little bit by little bit. And so, anybody that says, do this for 7 days, do this for 1 hour, and then, that's like a little bit silly, right? Because it's a process. It may have been a process that got you into where you're at, and it's probably going to be processed to get you out of where you're at. And so I've used the idea of, because a lot of my work, doing human rights stuff and with my humanitarian team, working in developing countries, I think about the idea of a hero. Certainly, I don't think I'm a hero. You probably don't think you're a hero. You don't need to be a hero. But I think about people who did heroic things. Think about Martin Luther King Jr. I think about Harriet Tubman especially. So there's a woman, an African-American woman during Civil War, using Underground Railroad, rescuing slaves, risking her life every day. And did she probably have times she was depressed? I can all but guarantee it. But she obviously kept going, and she did what she did. And so I think to myself, if she can keep going, you or I, or anybody in pretty much any circumstance, in any corner of the world, we can keep going. If she could keep going, we can keep going. And so I say, what are things I can do every day? Well, I can have my back straight, my shoulders back, chest out, chin up. I can go ahead, I can do some breathing, because that costs nothing but a few minutes. I can do some deep breath in, deep breath out. I can do some fast pranayama, fire breathing. And I can go ahead and I can control my breath. And I can do even a few minutes of an exercise, something just to remind me I have power. I know this is like an exercise fitness channel, but you don't actually need to do exercise. You can go ahead and you can just do something to remind yourself you have power. And every day in your room when you wake up, especially if you're feeling down in the morning, you're right in your kitchen, you're right in your bedroom, you can do 1 minute of squats. You can do even 10 squats. You can do something to remind yourself you have power. Because a lot of the issues of depression is an imbalance of your own perception of power, and or chemicals. But you can boost a lot of the chemicals people talk about, at least a little bit, doing some of the things I just said. People still may need an SSRI, a medicine, and there's nothing wrong with that. And that could be a long-term thing or a temporary bridge. But you can always go ahead and do the things you can do. And you should want to, because the real secret, the punchline, is you need to be somebody else's Harriet Tubman. And it doesn't mean, no, you don't need to go to some, poor developing country and start like rescuing people and human trafficking or something. You don't have to do something that extreme. You certainly can, and I hope people take advantage of human rights issues in the world, because that is important. But it could just be, your own child that needs you, or maybe some boy or girl in your street, in your community, in your neighborhood, and you be the Harriet Tubman for them. Because what happens is when you try to do something heroic for someone else, It's not an ego trip. It's not about ego. It's about reminding yourself you can feel important because you did something important. See, Harriet Tubman would not have called herself a hero, but she lived her life heroically. And so by doing so, she reminded herself, probably even at her lowest point, she had self-worth. She obviously knew what she was doing was important, and that her actions and her intent was important. And when you go ahead and you realize your actions and your intent is important, and your character is good, then you have self-worth. And you can go ahead and you can use logic and say, well, yeah, that's important. And so you know you're important and you have self-worth. Even if your depression tries to mess with you and say, you're worthless, you're useless, you're bad, but your logic, your rationale will win in the end. Because Harriet Tubman's logic and rationale won in the end. So think of it like that. Be the Harriet Tubman for someone else. And then one day, like that elevator ride slowly going up, one day, could be in a week, could be in a month, but you use that every morning and you start your day out like that, and one day you're going to realize, I feel pretty damn good because of who I am and what I'm trying to do for this other person. And so that is what I would say to depression. That's how I've always done it. That's how I've taught everyone else to do it. Hope it helps you. See you next time.